Bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de ASIPIPodcast denominado Artículos personalizados en la industria de la moda.
Welcome everyone to another episode of ASIPI's podcast, and thank you for joining us today. I am Liza Erazo, a Colombian attorney based in Bogotá from Erazo Abogados law firm, and I am currently the president of the Fashion Law Committee of ASIPI. I am especially pleased to introduce our guest, Professor Victoria Burke. Victoria is an adjunct associate professor at Southwestern Law School, where she has been teaching fashion law since 2019. She is a highly respected attorney with nationally recognized expertise in intellectual property law, including trademark, copyright, domain name issues, as well as privacy law, where she holds dual certifications in both the US and Europe. In addition to her academic work, Victoria is an attorney at Scott & Scott Attorneys at Law, where she focuses on complex litigation, including privacy data breaches and antitrust matters. Her career spans both litigation and in-house expertise, giving her a unique practical perspective on how the law operates in real-world business environment. Victoria is also widely known for her legislative work. She is the architect of the Speak Your Truth Act, which became California AB 933, now codified as California Civil Code Section 47.1. So it is like a pleasure, Victoria, to have you here. Victoria is also a good friend of mine. She has come to Colombia several times, so I am very happy to have her here. Speaking about what she likes most, that is fashion law. So hi, Victoria, and welcome to the ASIPI podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lisa. I'm very looking forward to discussing all the fashion topics today.
Perfect. Well, we are gonna talk about customized items in the fashion industry. And the first question I have is, how would you describe customized items in the fashion industry, and why has this become such a relevant issue today, particularly in the US? I would like to introduce a little bit what customized items are, so people get to know better this interesting topic, Vicky.
Sure. It's something that's become very big all of a sudden. It just popped up because people moved from mall culture years ago where, they would just take whatever was in the store, whatever was mass produced and pushed on people, and everyone was wearing the same thing. Now, because there's so many more choices, people kind of want to have their own individuality and have their own style and personalization. They don't want to look like everybody else. They don't want the same, let's say, shoes that look like everyone else's sneakers. They want someone to take notice, like, wow, those are really interesting, because you want people to notice you, not just that you're wearing some commercial brand and you're using their brand, and you want your own personal brand, basically. So you'll see people nowadays are having fun, also styling themselves a little bit differently and not just doing like the mainstream outfits that used to be out there. And this is just part of the evolution of fashion, of where people want to look unique. And one of the ways they're doing it is they are taking existing, let's say, sneakers. Let's just use Nike because they're very topical. And they're like, this is great, but I actually would like it to look something different because I don't want it to look like what everyone else has. And one of the ways they've done it, you could alter the logo, you can draw all over it and have different works of art on the shoe so people will take notice. And another way is that they cross-brand it, and they will mix brands that would never ordinarily be mixed. Like maybe they'll take, something from Louis Vuitton and put on the Nike swoosh. So it looks like it's cross-branded. And so on first appearance, you might be thinking, wow, I didn't know that Nike paired up with Louis Vuitton. That's interesting, but they haven't. And that's an interesting case. And it's finding itself a little bit in the courts, but not too much. And why it's not too much is kind of interesting as well.
Vicky, what do you think is really driving this trend? Is mostly about identity and self-expression, or are deeper business and market dynamics behind this trend?
Well, originally it started off with individuality. And that's been like a real push in America. So you'll see maybe like the top stars like Justin Bieber will have some sort of custom made thing, and people are like, oh, I want that too. I want something like custom. So you'll see a lot of like the, big entertainers will start wearing something, and everyone's like, well, I want that as well. And so for a while, what's interesting is there hasn't been any litigation. You think there should be litigation because like you're altering our brands, you're making it look different. People are mistaking it like, oh, we think these are like a new Nike line. They're not. So you would think a lot more litigation would have happened, but it hasn't happened until more recently. And I had a theory that one of the reasons why it hasn't happened is that you'll get a brand like, let's say, Louis Vuitton or Gucci that may not have infiltrated necessarily the younger streetwear generation. And yet, when they cross-branded on the sneakers, suddenly they have a new audience that wants like Gucci, that wants Louis Vuitton, and all of a sudden it's cool. It used to be what your parents wore and other older like people in your life. It wasn't something that the kids were going to the mall and like, oh, I've got to get the latest Gucci outfit. It wasn't something. So I feel that the brands at one point realized, wait a minute, this might not be bad for us because we are now able to get into a market we had no access to before. And so they're cool with groups of like, young people that would not have ordinarily thought this would be like a brand that they'd want to sport. But now that people are like putting it on different shoes and different marks and using that. So I found that I feel initially, they were not that litigious about it. Now, because it's become so popular, they're starting to think like, maybe I'll do it myself. Maybe we should be cross-pollinating. As you saw with like Adidas and Gucci had a collaboration, and they made like different like clothes that were kind of almost like what the customizers would make in shoes. So they're starting to see like there's a market for this. And if the customizers are doing it, it cuts into our market share. Whereas before, so few people were doing it. It was kind of like, well, this made our brand cool. But there's only like maybe 100 people doing this, or like 1,000, or like the celebrities doing it. It wasn't like everybody. But now that it's become more popular, people are taking orders, and now it's cutting into their market share. And also how people perceive like Nike and stuff can be affected by this also negatively by some of the cases. Nike has taken offense to some of the people doing the customizations. They have not liked their brand association, because also you don't get a choice in who decides to alter your brand and make it look like, to someone who's unassuming, it's a source indicator of Nike where it shouldn't be.
Well, very interesting. So it has advantages and disadvantages. Vicky, knowing that, are there any cases in this space that you find especially illustrative on how courts are approaching these issues?
Oh, very much so. It's now starting to hit the courts because, first of all, we have like the law behind it, which is for copyright. It's the first sale doctrine. And usually, you buy something, you have the rights to resell it. I bought this one thing, I can sell it. Why can't I do that? Or I could change it up myself. So like, let's say, for example, someone buys a Louis Vuitton suitcase and they cut it up and use that for like a swoosh and stuff. But the part of the first sale doctrine says you cannot materially alter the product before resale. So if you're using it for yourself, that's one thing. But if you're using it to sell to others, and all of a sudden like, you're going to have an issue with the law. So that's one issue right there that's a problem. And also you have like, trademark issues of where people think, oh no, this is like coming from Nike directly. They think it's a source identifier. It's not just misusing something. It's like now causing people to misinterpret it. And one of the main cases for this is an exciting one called was Nike versus Lil Nas X and Mischief. Now Mischief is an artist that frequently does drops that are like, a short amount of supply, just a few days, and it'll be like something a little bit controversial and get people's attention, and then it goes away. And that's what makes people want it all the more. And when they branded with Lil Nas X, they created something called the Satan shoes. Now, it was a Nike shoe, and they altered it to have like a pentagram. They were selling only 666 of the shoes. So they kept it like, with the devil. And they had the blood of the workers who made the shoe in the sole. So they're doing all these different things on it. And what happened was, although it was cool and the singer thought like, this is great, Nike was getting flooded with all these consumers saying like, you're like doing these Satan shoes? This is not like what we pictured for Nike. I'm very offended. And so Nike was getting all its blowback. And so they took action and sued for trademark infringement. And at the time, like Lil Nas X and Mischief countered by saying, well, this is like a parody. This is like, First Amendment and all this. And what the irony is that Mischief had done a drop about 2 or 3 years previous to this of like Jesus shoes. Nobody said anything when they mixed in the soles holy water and stuff because they didn't get negative like blowback from consumers. But this had a lot of consumers saying, because like nobody wants to get like bad, press for your brand and you hadn't even done anything. I think Nike felt they had to take action just so they could separate themselves from this product so people would know this is not associated with us. So the outcome for most of these is a settlement. And the settlement was that they would only like all those that were sold, if anyone wanted to get their money back because they were unaware this wasn't Nike official, everyone would be aware, but they put that there, they can get their money back, and they could not sell any additional shoes, but they had already sold out. So that was like one of the things, and they can't make any others, like just stop. Okay. So I think Nike kind of thought edgy, cool, but we don't want to be associated with this. So they didn't go and pursue like anything further, but there's been continuously other issues of Mischief has done it with other shoes from Vans. They had the wavy Vans ones. They've been altering the shoes. They do this because it also garners a lot of attention, but that one for the wavy baby shoes where they altered the soles to look like this. So when people saw it, it looked kind of cool, but it wasn't like a real good functional shoe because it's like probably hard to walk it. It's more like art. And they had argued that this was like parody and stuff, but the Second Circuit said, no, because you're selling it commercially, this is kind of stepped out of the realm of art. Maybe if it was like maybe one or two, one thing, but having it that many more, it wasn't able. So that has not proven to be a successful defense at this time.
Okay, so do you know any case that has been, or any example where this customization of an item has been beneficial for a company, Vicky, or you don't have any case on that?
That I wouldn't know about like how the feedback is about how they're beneficial, but I think if they're starting to show that younger people are starting to want to buy brands that younger people had not been interested in, then it's like a beneficial, because I think that's why they were silent for so long, is because they were getting a lot of benefit. I mean, they just now settled another major case. It was like Nike was suing this shoe surgeon, who's like a famous customizer, for $60 million for trademark infringement, dilution, all this. And what the problem was, he had set up an academy of how to do it. So he was teaching other people, this is how you change your shoe, this is how you do it. And like, so Nike said to him, like, you could do one-on-one customizations. So note that. They gave permission in their settlement that you can do one-on-one, because Nike must feel there's some benefit to having some customizations done, but you cannot do it for like mass production. You cannot be teaching people how to basically counterfeit their brand, because a lot of them were not actually even Nike shoes at this point. They were being made to look like Nike shoes, but weren't Nike shoes. And they're like, someone twists their ankle and buys them. Like, it's always a, secondhand market you have to worry about. Someone buys them like used, they trip, they fall, they think it's a Nike shoe that fell apart. It has nothing to do with Nike, but it looks like it. Could be bad press. They had these concerns, but it was interesting in the settlement how Nike was aware that this was not necessarily a bad thing for the press, so they still allowed the customization instead of saying absolutely no.
Very interesting. Vicky, what do you think about these items when they have like another brands or another trademarks on them? Let's say some person customize a shoe of a particular brand and another brand is put it on them. I mean, like an artistic work doing the logo of another brand. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it could go either way depending on the perception of both brands, because let's say if a brand has a negative association and it's put onto Nike, that could be a problem. I'm using Nike as an example, but imagine let's say, someone uses something from the Kanye West brand and they don't like Kanye West and don't want to have association with him because of maybe something he said or did or something like that. And, maybe the brand is like, oh no, we didn't want to work with him. And now it looks like his brand is all over ours. And if it catches on, then maybe, they could get some negativity. The whole thing is they don't want anything negative to blow back on them. Like with the Satan shoes, they don't want that. So let's say if a brand, someone doesn't like that brand because it doesn't align with what their standards are. Maybe they use, labor that they don't agree with. Let's say that, one brand uses, let's say, labor practices the other brand doesn't agree with. So if you cross-pollinate them, it looks like, oh, you kind of dropped the ball or you don't care about what the stance you originally took. So it can come into a PR issue at one point. So I can see why brands would be cautious and, monitoring just to make sure it's not something that takes them down the road of nobody wants, let's say someone to mark on theirs something like a Nazi uniform type thing on their brand, to be walking around and have that somehow stuck to their brand, that they're endorsing something they're absolutely not endorsing, but where it's actually just someone else's freedom of expression. But when an average consumer is seeing it, the likelihood of confusion might be high if they have the original marks of both brands on there. They might not understand, oh, why are they associating with this brand? I thought my brand didn't like that. So it can be interesting to see how brands react now.
Very interesting, Vicky. You spoke previously about the difference between when you customize your item for your personal use versus when you customize it for commercial use. So I think we can draw a line there, because that makes somehow a huge difference, no? Perhaps if a famous person or influencer through Instagram uses a customized item he did for himself or herself, it can somehow has some commercial link. So I am wondering how much or how does this analysis change once these customized products are commercialized, especially through social media platforms? What do you think about that, Vicky?
I think the courts have shown with the Wavy Baby ones, with the Vans one that we're arguing with, I think it was Tyga and Mischief, that in that case, if it goes broadly commercial, selling over a certain amount, in mass, that it's no longer a customization, it's more like a mass product in a way. So if it looks like it's for mass sale, that seems to be indicating this is not a First Amendment self-expression. Where if you ask someone to customize something because you're trying to do your own First Amendment personal expression, it might be protected to a certain degree. I might not be good with art, but I might hire someone else to express what I want to express. Maybe there's a cause I want to push at this time, maybe how the state of the country is. I want to put something on my shoe that has to do with how I feel politically, so it's my First Amendment speech put on my shoe. I'm not good at art. I'm hiring someone else to achieve the statement I wish to make. So I think that's seen as art and more protected and may have more protection, possibly a customizing. I mean, how they do it when they use another brand's logo on there for that depends on the brand. Now in Japan, Louis Vuitton has gone after people and won when they've had customization of hats and different things, because they said it was the consumer would presume that there was some sort of collaboration with whatever brand, and they were very litigious. Louis Vuitton is very active at protecting their brand. Let's put it that way. Very active and proactively protecting their brand at all costs, but they don't usually hear, which is very, very strange. But once again, I think it is because they must be attaining some sort of benefit by not doing that. They're gaining this new audience, but it's a slippery slope. The bigger you get with your customizations And if you're doing lots of the same ones over and over again, it looks less like art and more like commercial sale.
Okay, Vicky. So, pues, you already spoke about that, but do you see a difference in how luxury brands versus more accessible brands approach enforcement in this space? You already spoke about Louis Vuitton, but I wish you could describe a little bit more.
Sure. Certain brands like Louis Vuitton and others, they have spent years, decades building up what their customers expect from them and what they want. If their customers expect high quality leather goods that look a certain way for let's say for business or whatever, and they see it now being used by just teenagers out and about for low cost, they might feel it's diluted the brand. And that's one of the issues. And sometimes you'll see the suits are for dilution because you're harming our brand because now it's everywhere. Because if you don't want your brand having that much exposure, think of the Birkin bag, how they only want people who've previously bought some sort of Hermes stuff and they've had to buy a certain amount in order to qualify for a Birkin bag because they don't want everybody wearing one. So they want to keep it limited and exclusive. But if everyone's all of a sudden having the Gucci logo on all their shoes and this, it's no longer the exclusive group that paid a lot of money to wear it. It's now just anybody who is wearing it, and teenagers who have very little money are wearing it. It could depreciate the brand. So there would be a higher concern for a higher end brand about controlling the reputation of their trademark to make sure it doesn't lose value. Because if people are starting to say I don't want it, it's everywhere now. I wanted it when it was exclusive, but this is ugh. And so that's one of the issues. If they don't control it, then it's they're going to worry that it's going to be seen as everybody's brand instead of exclusive. So that would be one of the issues of the higher end brands might want to police that a little bit more, whereas maybe a brand that's just starting out might be more flattered because they're gaining exposure and maybe they're being introduced into groups that they would want to be in and have not had access to. Imagine you are able to market your products without paying someone to market your products. So you're having all this push on, with influencers and social media, which is now the new platform. It's not as much going to the mall. It's going on TikTok and different Instagram and finding your own style and having it customized for you. It's for groups that aren't usually going to the mall and don't want everything that comes out of the Gap, the Old Navy, everything that's pushed for consumption. They don't want to look like every other person that season. They want to look like their own person. So it's interesting.
Vicky, very interesting. And I wonder, what is your advice for designers working in customizations? What are the biggest legal pitfalls they should be aware of?
I would say proceed with caution would be one of the things, because this is still an unknown area of law and you're still in violation if you're using their mark without their permission. So if you have commercial sales in mind of you're hoping to mass produce a whole bunch that look like this, that would be big huge red flag. That would be one of the things I would be please pause, consider, because the first sale doctrine will not protect you if you bought all this material and used goods and are using it and I already bought this Nike shoe, why can't I do what I want with it? It's because you're materially altering it. So you are actually in active danger because you're changing the look of it. Especially, like I said, if Nike hasn't authorized something, even a customization of a person, for a small audience could still be brought into court. And it's only through a settlement that they've allowed a small level to continue on. This was not officially adjudicated by the court system as a ruling. This was a part of a settlement. So you were in a territory where you could potentially be at risk, but most of the time these things end in a settlement. So if you're okay with realizing that you're gonna have to stop the sale and have to figure out how to no longer continue a certain part because you've been targeted now by this brand. Because a lot of times these brands, they'll keep hitting you with more and more lawsuits each time you come out with one. So that's something that if once you're on their radar, it's going to be a problem. So proceed with caution because you are in the gray area of the law. And, you could say it's First Amendment, you can lean on parity, but so far those have not been seen as something to protect these, customizations, though maybe down the line they could be if they're unique enough.
Okay, Victoria, I think we have like a good panorama of what's going on with these kind of items. And thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today with ASIPI. And thank you for having the time to join me in this podcast. I am very grateful with you for being here. Thank you so much. And I hope to have you in a next podcast, or perhaps in a webinar, because I know this is the topic you like most, fashion law, and that's where you move on your daily basis. So many thanks, Vicky, for being here with us today and with ASIPI.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.